Mike Smith getting all from West Coast as he clings to the lead from Gunnamera. IRAP is third at the inside. Cameron is fourth and is West Coast, and he keeps on rolling. And West Coast goes wire to wire. It's the Travers.
Live from the backstretch at historic Saratoga Racecourse, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow. Racing Across America is brought to you by Pinnell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, Saratoga, just minutes from the track. Thoroughfan, giving the fan a voice. Find them at thoroughfan.com. And Woodbine Racetrack. Pick, bet, and cheer on world-class horse racing north of the border.
Good morning and welcome to the Thursday edition of Racing Across America. I'm Seth Merrow. We are live from the Saratoga backstretch on another gorgeous morning. Still a little humid, but boy, sun splashed and horses are behind us on Clare Court, or have been over the past half hour or so since I've been here, and of course working out on the main track as well. So another nice morning. Yesterday I said it was very similar in the morning, and I said could be hit or miss, and certainly a little shower kind of blew through, but nothing to kind of deter from an afternoon at the racetrack for folks. I guess some folks had to seek a little bit of shelter for a couple of minutes, but then right back out if you're on a picnic table or whatnot. Looks like a similar day today, although that said, I don't really know. I think there is no rain in the forecast for today, so I think we'll be all right for the remainder of this Thursday. On our Thursday edition of Racing Across America, we will have Melissa Cohen, an assistant to trainer Rick Violette, talking a little bit about her job as an assistant trainer, and certainly a big week in the Violette barn. They also have an entrant in today's stakes race. Mike Welch from the Daily Racing Forum will talk a little of the stakes action coming up on the weekend, maybe touch on that New York Sire Stakes today as well. And right after we come back from the break, Jeff Canizzo, the executive director of the New York Thoroughbred Breeders. It has been a wild 4 or 5 days, and we'll continue into the weekend as well with the sale coming up for the New York Thoroughbred Breeders, and we'll hit on all of that when we have Jeff come in just a couple of minutes. We'll take a break now. I have my tie with my pink theme because, again, it's Fabulous Fillies Day at the racetrack here. Kind of a recognition of breast cancer awareness, and you're encouraged to wear pink if you're coming up to the track to participate in that fashion. So I put on my tie a little pink in there for that today. We'll head to a break. We'll come back Thursday on Racing Across America. Continues right after this. Stay tuned.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes.
You know, and make better decisions, better choices, to know how to connect the dots. In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool, but not the only tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. These too are important tools, and you'll find them all right here at Capital OTB. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
The backstretch workers are the heart and soul of what we do.
They're the backbone of the industry.
People on the racetrack are very giving people.
It's a very oppressive community of people helping one another. We see it all the time.
Any help we need it. It's right there in their hands.
It makes so much easier in the family to have somebody like Nathan to help them.
Looking for a fantastic meal? Stop by Malcolm's, a unique farm-to-table restaurant experience. Located at 617 Union Street in Schenectady, Malcolm's offers locally grown fresh foods, mouth-watering flavors, an enhanced drink menu, and terrific service. Malcolm's is a sure bet during Saratoga season. Make your reservation today.
welcome back to Racing Across America on this Thursday morning. As noted before the break with the Whitney and the sales Monday and Tuesday night, the upcoming sales Saturday and Sunday, a really big 7-10 days for the New York Thoroughbred Breeders, and the executive director of that organization joins us this morning, Jeff Canizzo. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning.
Big smile on your face,
Thanks for having
understandably.
me. Yeah, no, it was, it's been a big week.
Yeah, it has been. Before we get to the specifics, you guys have a great website, and I think we have the address will come up on the screen, nytbreeders.org. I know Sarah Mace does a great job keeping up with the results and those kind of things, so you can follow the news and find out Thoroughbred Breeders program up here. But just from your perspective, give us the purview and the mission of the New York Thoroughbred Breeders.
So we're the trade association for the breeders here in the state of New York. We serve two true purposes, one being advocacy, so lobbying and fighting for the rights and regulations for breeding here in the state of New York and agribusiness. And the second is promotion, so promoting the state bred program and New York breds in a whole.
That just got a lot easier.
Got a lot easier. They speak for themselves.
And again, we'll talk about it. Just an incredible week for the New York breds. But again, let's get some of the background because I say it all the time. Just the horse racing game in general. You drive past a racetrack, and as opposed to driving past a shoe factory, there's X number of employees in that shoe factory. And I don't think people think of a racetrack like that. They think it's a sporting venue. You don't think of the concessionaires and the trainers and the backstretch help and the ushers and whatnot, all of which play into the economic impact. But certainly the breeders move that beyond the racetrack with the farms, the hay, the vets, the equipment they need on those farms. Talk a little bit about the economic impact of the thoroughbred breeders.
So the National American Horse Council actually just finished a study this past year, which it's been a decade since the last one was done. And the bigger picture equine industry has a $5 billion, it's actually a little bit larger than $5.2 billion effect on the state's GDP. And that's as big as...
That's just in New York.
That's just New York. That's as big as business gets. It's huge because you have a trickle-down effect. As you said, you look at this Saratoga, there's so much, tourism that goes into this. Flip the other side of that coin, and it's agribusiness and agritourism, from hay, feed, supplies, feed, vets, foals, building, barns, infrastructure, employment, the list goes on and on. There's about 300 thoroughbred farms here in the state of New York, spread across many different counties. There's employment of over 33,000 people. It's big business.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about that geographically, because of course we know here in our area, McMahon and the farms like that are located right around here, or maybe a little bit south and whatnot. But geographically, they're really located all over the state.
They are. And if you look at just horses in general, every single county, 62 counties in the state of New York, have some type of horse activity. Manhattan, there's actually horses there. Every single county, believe it or not, has horses. For the thoroughbred business, we have this horse corridor that exists from a little bit north of Saratoga down through the Hudson region. That's where the vast majority of the horse population is. Western New York, of course, on Finger Lakes area, and believe it or not, Suffolk County down in Long Island has several farms as well. So it's really spread out. It's unique. It's what separates us or makes us a little different than Lexington, Kentucky, for example. But it's nice, and there's over I think it's 1.3 million acres utilized for the actual equine industry. So again,
and that's something that doesn't get brought up a lot. The maintenance of green space is important, and that's part of what the thoroughbred breeders do.
It is. It's back in the early 70s, late 60s, the dairy industry was failing. New York State at the time was very forward thinking and said, hey, how can we convert these dairy farms into some, we want to keep the green space. And that was really the impetus behind the state's breeding development program.
It's certainly, the New York breds have become an important part of racing across the country. As again, we'll touch on the Whitney results in a few minutes, but I just want to touch on the day-to-day racing because, the rest of the year we're down in the studio and I do the afternoon handicapping shows and focus when Finger Lakes is racing, they're in our mix, and obviously the New York tracks, Aqueduct, Belmont, and up here at Saratoga. And the New York breds have become a very important part of the racing program in the state.
It is. It's probably the biggest thing that's changed in the New York racing market is how important New York breds are to filling every day's card. You know, 46% of NYRA's annual starts. So think about this. 46%.
Just below half? Really?
46% of the starts made in 2017 are state bred.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, without New York breds being a prominent growing component, NYRA racing doesn't exist as it does today, as we know it. Here in Saratoga, believe it or not, 33% of the starts, and subsequently about 9 million out of a little over 41 million in purse money is earned by New York bred horses.
Yeah, again, following it on a day-to-day basis, it's become very apparent, and that then goes in turn to just the quality that has improved since I'll talk Whitney Day, I mentioned it a bunch of times. I was up here when Fiorito broke through the gate and then subsequently won the Whitney with Les Hewlett coming in from Finger Lakes, but it's a whole different breed now. And again, we'll talk the Whitney in just a second, which puts the perfect example on that. But you look at those day-to-day races and the quality of the New York breds has risen as well.
It has, and I think that's really what separates breeding in New York versus breeding in some of the other regional markets. The quality has dramatically changed in the last 10 years. You know, and even further back, you go back to Fiorito. In 1981, he was the New York bred that happened to win the Whitney Stakes, right? And today, it's mind your biscuits and diversify. It wasn't the fact that they were New York breds. It just happened to be New York breds. That wasn't the dialogue, and that's where it's changed so much to today. And you have Disco Partner. The graded list goes on and on and on. And we're winning in Dubai. Audible's one of the favorites leading into the Derby Trail, the Florida Derby. We're there every Saturday is the point, and that's really the testament to where the breeding program has come.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch as a New York guy root for the New York breds as that has happened, and it's become much more and more prominent over the years, and we saw the result of that on Saturday. Just before we get to that, I want you to make one more point, because we have a variety of people come in here during the year, including breeders, and just talk a little bit about the benefits of the New York bred program. Because when I have breeders and I talk a lot, I don't think people realize breeders still are tied into the horse well after a sale, because there are those breeders awards which are so potent up here in New York as well.
They are. It's a major factor of the equation. The reason that we have this marketplace and demand for our horses is based on racing. So when NYRA offers $44 million in state-bred purses and over 600 restricted races and an $8.5 million stakes program, it creates a demand for owning a New York bred. Subsequently, you have breeders that are trying to supply horses into that. And the other side of the equation is the Breeders' Awards program, where as a breeder, if you're breeding a quality horse that can compete, at the NYRA level and even obviously at Finger Lakes as well, they're essentially earning an annuity for the life of that horse. Every time he finishes 1, 2, 3, hits the board in any race here in the state of New York, they're getting a certain percentage. If it's New York side, it's 30% for a win. If it's out-of-state side, it's half of that, 15%. But they're getting that annuity every single time he happens to win. And it's without any bills, without any jocks fees, trainers fees. They're just collecting on that, and it's a major component of the reason that New York breds in New York is doing so well.
Yeah, as I say, I think a lot of folks don't realize that the breeders are still tied in and they kind of rooting their horses down the stretch, even when somebody else is owning and training. All right, let's get to the weekend and go back to the Whitney, because again, for the New York bred program, the New York bred thoroughbred breeders, this just had to be a phenomenal afternoon, because not only do you have the two favorites in the Grade 1 Whitney, but they live up to the favoritism, running 1-2 down the stretch, and this was a second monster performance by Diversify, and I thought stretching out a very good twice over in Dubai as a New York bred, and to have them run 1-2 in a prestigious Grade 1 like this, you guys had to be over the moon.
They spoke for themselves, and it's. I'll go back to my earlier comment. In 1981 with Fiorito, it was, he was an anomaly, right? In 2003, Funnyside was an anomaly. Here we are today, and they're the 1-2 choices in the Whitney. The Whitney we're talking about. And it's a really big deal. And it's all based on the fact that, you know, they've been performing at graded level and Group 1 level competition now for multiple years. The list goes down from there, but you know, again, it's a testament of where we are today, and you know, those are the top two. You know, literally they've been the top two New York breds for the last few years and competing against each other for, you know, our divisional championships that we award, and to see them come, you know, head in head and face each other was pretty neat.
Yeah, top of the stretch. Mind Your Biscuits was starting to make that Dubai move, but Diversify, just being a quality speed horse, had a little too much left, but it was a lot of fun to watch, and it would have been hard to think in those Fiorito days of a New York bred with $4 million in the bank.
It is. It's you know, and they're both New York sired as well. You know, both of this posse stood here in the state of New York. Bellamy Road stands here in New York State. So it's an all-around very good story.
Yeah, as I say, a big weekend with the two horses running 1-2 in the Whitney. But then it continued on Monday night, and I want you to talk a little bit about that because, again, the New York breeders have to be smiling. We're going to have a shot of the catalog page, hip number 52, which went on Monday night. And Bob Baffert dips in for $1 million, American Pharoah, out of a dam called Party Silks. That makes this one a sibling to Upstart, who folks will remember. But down at the bottom of the page, you got to love it, registered New York bred.
Yeah, I know. Bob's joke was he didn't know it actually was a New York bred. I find that hard to believe. Yeah, I think it clearly was a joke. But he, you know.
So he's pointing firmly for the Mike Lee.
That's
Mike Lee, the New York Derby,
exactly,
the Albany.
Exactly. No, here's $1 million yearling, modern day record for yearling price. For a New York bred, sells it, you know, the most boutique sale for yearlings, and you know, is the second highest priced horse to go through the ring. Half brother to Upstart, Miss Joanne Nielsen, who bred the horse from Sunnyfield Farm, has long been a part of the New York breeding scene, and her late husband. They're a major part of, she's on our board of directors, she's a major part, and her husband was a major part of the organization, people that really changed, you know, the landscape here. And so it's great to see a testament to, you know, this is an example of that. She has an American Pharoah, New York bred, from a strong female family that's all New York bred related, so it's kind of within itself. It's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal.
It's certainly Monday night with $1 million. And, you know, that puts this horse in select company. I think there were 5 7-figure horses overall. So for a New York bred to be there. And explain a little bit, because you kind of alluded to this a little bit as well when you said they came from New York sires. This one is American Pharoah. So I'm assuming was sired down in Kentucky and then comes back, and that's part of the New York bred program. You can take your mare out of state, but then they have requirements to come back to be a New York bred as far as foaling and whatnot.
Correct. So it's based on residency, the mare's residency. So essentially the easiest way to look at it is that if she does the proper time here in the state of New York, 9 months or so, based on a few other rules of when she's foaled and where she's where she's conceived, and does the time here, it becomes a resident, she can come and go as she wishes. It's an open program. It's a major reason that the quality of our horses have improved for sure, and you know, people are taking advantage of that. It's the reason we're growing is that we're attracting people from all over the world, right? You know, we're in a shrinking industry. We're in a shrinking pool of people involved in this. So having this open program is one of the benefits here to New York, because now, because it's so lucrative, people from Kentucky and around the world are like, well, I'm going to have some New York bred foals as long as we follow these rules and guidelines, and this is an example of that.
I will verify, for people who don't follow the game as closely as I'm required to from this job over the past few years or going back a decade or whatever, you look at the prominent owners in the game, they want New York breds because the program's so lucrative that you can't sit on the sidelines.
Right. So and here in New York, you know, without having a New York bred in your stable, it'd be very difficult. You know, I mentioned 46% of the starts. It'd be very difficult, you know, from an entry standpoint, not to. And that's really what's changed, is that, you know, if you're owning and racing in New York, you're going to have a few in order to be, you know, attending the races.
Yeah, exactly. Just wanted to touch on, because I mentioned this also, I mentioned the Mike Lee and the New York Derby and the Albany. Used to be the Big Apple Triple, but still prominent races. Doesn't have the title around it anymore, but still prominent races for 3-year-olds. And I wanted to go back a few weeks ago, because with this meet going, we didn't have a chance to look at the New York Derby. Number 2 Seafoam, the folks at home will be watching the replay for Christophe Clement, comes in and gets the victory. training up here now, so I expect Seafoam will go in that Albany coming up on the 24th of this month. And I pulled up the stakes here at Saratoga for the New York Breds, and I have a nice full page of, six-figure dollar amount stakes, of which the Albany will be $250,000. And I looked, the Albany last year, Twisted Tom, very good. 2 years ago, hit it once more for Bill Parcells. And going back to 2012, Willie Beeman, who 3 days later won the Grade 1 King's Bishop.
That's exactly right. Dutch Rub.
Yeah.
This is, we have these showcase days where they're $1 million days of just New York bred stakes. There's one at Belmont in May. You have Showcase Day here in Saratoga that occurs on the 24th. And then there's the Empire Showcase back at Belmont in October. And, a lot of other states will talk about, they're $1 million day. Well, we have 3 of them. Yeah. And, we're looking forward to the Albany. It's definitely, with Twisted Tom, who's champion 3-year-old last year that came out of that race. It sets up the 3-year-old division nicely, and it should be a really good field.
Yeah, you go down that list of Albany winners, and there's some fun names for 3-year-old division overall, much less New York breds. Jeff, before we let you go, just want to tout what is likely to be another big weekend coming up. And if folks want to get into this New York bred program, no better place to do it than a block and a half up the street, Fasig-Tipton Pavilion, Saturday and Sunday, the New York Bred Sale.
That's right. So this Saturday and Sunday is our sale, the New York Bred Sale at Fasig-Tipton here in Saratoga, both evenings. There's going to be about 326 or so horses cataloged that'll go through the ring.
I'm thinking after Monday and Tuesday, you guys are optimistic.
This sale itself is the best, literally one of the best sales in the world in terms of horse quality and sales performance. And average earnings per horse that comes out of the sale, which a lot of the times is lost in the shuffle. But so basically, the sales price is roughly a $90,000 average for New York bred horses. That average continues to grow year after year after year, and there's absolutely no reason not to think it will again, which is remarkable. It's the top 18% of our foal crop that make it into that sale. It's about 1,700 foals, like I said, 300 and a quarter or so are actually cataloged. So it's the upper echelon of New York bred horses, and there's a huge market for them.
And Mind Your Biscuits came out of the sale, correct?
He did.
That's pretty good recommendation right there. And again, that's Saturday and Sunday at the Fasig-Tipton Pavilion. And I always say this when I talk about the sales: even if you aren't jumping in for a horse, swing by, because the crowd out there adds a nice extra buzz to the 2 evenings.
It does. Now, and the big difference now is that the open sale Monday and Tuesday night, there's people that stay all week for our state bred sale, and that's really, shows the landscape of where we are today.
Yeah, that's why, as I say, you guys have to be optimistic after the blockbuster Monday and Tuesday, and the New York bred sale has become much more popular over the past few years as well. Jeff, happy to have you on a big week for the New York Thoroughbred Breeders. Again, the website, nytbreeders.org. You can keep up with all the news on the New York bred scene, and wish you good luck on the weekend.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Jeff Canizzo, the Executive Director of New York Thoroughbred Breeders. I saw our buddy Mike Welch out in the green room, as it were. We'll talk Saturday stakes with Mike right after this. Stay tuned.
For 4 generations, Bruce Cerrone and his family have continued the 96-year tradition of delighting their local following and faithful summer crowd with the finest authentic Italian recipes. Classic Italian dishes made with the freshest ingredients and served in a home-like setting where everyone is welcome. Some things have changed in the last 96 years, but not Pinnell's commitment to the finest in Italian cuisine. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track.
Sign up today for Capital OTB's handicapping series and plan your trip to Las Vegas.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on a Thursday morning, live from the Saratoga backstretch, right in front of Clare Court. Beautiful morning here at Saratoga, and I'm sure taking advantage of it with the stopwatch. Our friend Mike Welch, again, we highly tout on his visits, the Daily Racing Form workout reports. You will come up with some nuggets, take my word for it. We've said it probably 10 times already here at this meet. It's not how fast they work, it's how they work fast. And if you pull up the workout report, they're all graded, there are comments, you learn if they're working in company or whatnot, and highly touted to, again, pull up those Daily Racing Form reports and use those to come up with some good information in the afternoon. Mike, good morning.
Good morning.
And let's talk a little bit about the workouts just before we get into some of the stakes action, because I was thinking as I was driving in today, knowing you would be on the show, with the, I guess you could say, unsettled weather. That was the phrase I was going to use. It's just been kind of hit or miss with showers coming in the afternoon and some races off the turf and whatnot. Has that affected the workouts in the morning?
Yeah, you know, the days where the track isn't that good, I mean, guys pass and wait for a better racetrack, and we've had a few situations where we got backed up on pretty badly on a couple of mornings where they're coming at you left and right. I think Monday might have been a record for this place, almost 500 works here combined between the three tracks. We had about 240, I think, here on the main track, 115 on the turf, and maybe 100 and something on the training track. So, you know, the problem with that is you get to watch less of these works because you're trying to scramble around and see so many. And, you know, when we get backed up like that, after the break, we've got three of us all over on the main track. Donald Harris and Dave Grenning come over, and the three of us kind of do what we can over there, and then we go our separate ways the rest of the time. Donald and I do the turf works together, and with 115 of them, and one or two might slip through, but they do break those up pretty well now. It used to be everybody could just come out whenever they wanted to. We'd get 50 in the first 8 minutes, but now they break them up into groups of 20 or 25, so that helps there. But a couple of mornings it gets pretty hectic. We were slow this morning. Yesterday a little busier than I expected on the main track. I think we had 70 something, but that was because the forecast for rain last night, you know, guys that were looking to work today, a few guys went yesterday. So that's the worst part. I mean, you know, you think about, well, we get one day of rain, you can sleep in a little bit because nothing's going to work, but it catches up with you in the long run.
I see you and Dave Dave Grenning up in the press box in the afternoon, still parsing things out after big days like that. You mentioned the turf works. Talk about that, because typically they have, what, a couple of days reserved for the turf works each week, and that can get juggled around with the rain as well.
Monday and Friday for the general population. They will allow stake horses if the weather and the turf course permits to work on Saturday or Sunday morning around 10 o'clock. You get a handful there, usually a lot of Chads, because he's got so many of these turf horses. But again, got backed up because of the weather, so we had 115. We actually had, I think, 17 of the so-called specials, where their stakes horses going in graded stakes. They're allowed to work before the general population. They're allowed to work inside the dog up against the rail. So you'll note their times are faster. And you got to kind of watch for that, because they're right down on the fence, and the rest of the horses work out about 15 feet out. So obviously they're traveling a little more ground. So those half-mile works, 5/8 works are a little longer. When they're down on the fence, they're the exact distance, and they'll run quicker. So we note on on the works, if you see in the racing form, if the D is there, that meant the dogs are up. Those are the ones that work outside. The ones with no markers like that, they're the ones that are down on the rail, and those are always stakes horses.
And all turf workouts are across the street at Oklahoma, correct?
Everything's over at Oklahoma, nothing on the main track here.
All right, let's hit on some of the action and get some of your thoughts over the next few days. The New York Stallion Series today, I saw you wrote a little piece in the racing forum about this. I had Rick Violet on the other day. We're going to have his assistant later. We'll get some thoughts on Byself. But Byself has kind of a, lightly raced, but has shown some promise. And that when we had him on the other day, I saw there was a turf work, and sure enough, Rick said he was going to come in this spot. I have that one underneath. I want Mentality. If that one shows up, I'd like the quick turnaround for Wesley Ward. I don't know whether they'll elect to run this afternoon, but on that quick turn, I always like that. I think that shows confidence. If that one stays, I like that. But Goodbye Broccoli underneath off the past few starts with nice improving numbers. If that one goes by, for me, I had it 9, 2, 3, and 1. What were your thoughts?
Well, a lot of these horses have met before at 7/8. Now they're stretching to a mile, so that's the key here. And the pace scenario, Mentality will be part of the pace scenario. Obviously, Crashing Connie coming in from Finger Lakes is going to be part of the pace scenario, and so could Ricky's horse, and that's what concerns me about Byself. She worked on the grass the other day, first time she's been on it. I thought she looked terrific. She handled it well. She was a little keen early, went off quick, but she finished strong, galloped out extremely well. So I think she's going to love it out there today, but she's a speed horse too.
From the rail.
So I think Rick would like to ease her back and sit second flight if he can. He's a little bit, the jockey Irad Ortiz is going to be a little bit handcuffed, breaking inside. He's going to have to do some and get a little lucky, I should say, getting into that first turn and getting into the spot he wants. But I think if she could set up position, avoid a speed duel, I think she could beat this field, and she might be a little bit of a price just because she's first-time turf.
Yeah, the numbers, again, I'm a buyer's guy. The numbers, you probably are going to have to look to step up. Not much, but a little bit. And on that, we may get a little bit of value there. But, Rick thought she's a little hard on herself on the dirt, maybe, tried her on the turf, and so I thought he was confident.
And she has a little bit of a turfy action, too, watching her work on the grass the other day. She's always trained well. I've liked her right from the start, from what I saw from her even last year. This will be interesting to see if she has to go a mile for the first time too. So there's a couple of questions for her to answer, but she looks the part of a horse that will enjoy it out there today.
All right, let's go to Saturday. 3 stakes, one of those rescheduled from last weekend, but we kicked things off early in the card on Saturday. Third race, the Adirondack Grade 2, like a lot of the stakes races this time of year and really into the fall. For the 2-year-olds, we're really looking at kind of a non-winners or one other than, but there are certainly some horses showing some promise. I pulled up the maiden special from the beginning of the meet. Number 6, Lyrical Lady, will be the winner there for Steve Asmussen, who's just, off to a phenomenal start at the meet. We're now getting to the point where it's beyond the start, but and still kind of holding very good form. And this was one of those. Pretty nice win in the career debut for Lyrical Lady, but a winner also, Mucho Amor, Graham Margurti, a debut winner down at Parks. Pletcher has Virginia Eloise, who I think, given the number, might offer a little bit of value behind the Asmussen horse, but that one's sneaky to me. And Sue's Fortune, another debut winner as well. What are your thoughts on the Adirondack?
Well, they're all undefeated. Guacamole got her win by a kind of controversial disqualification. Yeah. Steve Asmussen's already won, I think, 5 2-year-old races. That would have been 6 because that was his horse that they took down. I disagreed with it, but the stewards don't ask my opinion before they make their calls. 4 of these horses have won their debuts by daylight and then some. They're all kind of forwardly placed, so it's going to be interesting to see who goes, who sits back, who can handle the 6.5 furlong. There's a lot of questions in here. You're right, Steve Asmussen's supposed to be favored because of that 75 buyer, no doubt about it, and the hot streak he's on. I talked to Todd. He's going to run them both. Originally, he wasn't going to run Guacamole, but when it came up a short field, he said she came out of that race okay, so he's going to run her back. Virginia Eloise has the advantage. She's the only one that's gone 6 furlongs. She also ran kind of professionally because she had the rail. That's tough on 2-year-old first-time starters, and she came up the rail and ran well. And I think he's hoping to sit her back off the pace a little bit. You got horses coming out of 4.5 furlongs, 5.5 furlong races. She's out of a 6, so I think you'll look for her to sit back and as far as Todd's concerned, hopefully get a contested pace and then be able to kind of finish up like she did in her last. She would be my pick in here if I'm making a set of picks, but this is a tough category. to pick when they've only had one start. They're all coming from all over the place. They've all run at different distances. They've all pretty precocious. So we'll see. The start will be very important, obviously, and the pace scenario likewise.
Yeah, as I said earlier, excuse me, that's the scenario for these 2-year-old races now at this time of the year. All right, the 4-Star Dave Grade 1 event on the turf, and this will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what Linda Rice does. She wanted this spot potentially for Voodoo Song, but I believe she said if it comes up soft, she's not going to be happy. But she becomes Voodoo Song becomes important because if that one didn't elect to go, Heart to Heart on the front end speed becomes a lot more potent. But I pulled up the Turf Classic from Churchill over a yielding course. Yoshida is going to close into a win. And given the potential of Heart to Heart and Voodoo Song going and battling each other, going back to this Turf Classic and thinking, you know, the course probably will have some give in it, as it clearly did that day down at Churchill, Yoshida becomes interesting, but we'll have to watch. You also have the sibling to Royal Delta in here, Delta Prince. Divisadero, I have read, is going to elect to go here as opposed out to Arlington. So it's a nice field in here, but as I say, it's going to make a difference if Voodoo Song goes or not, the pace scenario.
Yeah, that's for sure. And if she goes and she can soften up Heart to Heart a little bit, I like Yoshida in here. I mean, she's coming off just a terrific effort, I thought, at Ascot. I looked up that race. About 10 of the horses have come back out of that race to run again in Europe. 3 of them have won, and
really?
4 of them were second. And it looks like they were all in stakes races, all in pretty good races. So for her to finish 5th, get beat a length in that race like that, making that big late run coming from back in the pack like he did, he looks like he's sitting on another big effort coming off of that. If he could repeat it, just trained that, you know, nothing too strenuous coming out of that after making that long trip. But I just think he's the one to beat if he could get some pace out. If Voodoo Song scratches and Heart to Heart's loose on the lead, well, we know what he's like when he gets alone and can relax on the front end. He's always the one to beat there. So Voodoo Song decision here was in the Laura last week, now is in here. It looks like we might get lucky and escape rain the next 48 hours, and if that's the case, I think the course will tighten up enough where Linda will probably go. But you know, she may be thinking the same thing though. If I go in here, I got to hook Heart to Heart, I might be wasting a race. Maybe she'll look elsewhere. So I think that's again, there's key to all these races, and that's the #1 key here. Heart to Heart and Voodoo Song. What happens with them early?
Pace scenario is going to be very important in this one. All right, and finally the Lure again rescheduled from last week with the weather situation. $100,000 up for grabs. 4-year-olds and up, going 8.5 furlongs on the grass. Boy, this is projected. Ran second in this race last year. Black Type in this race last year, a kind of a dud as a 6th place finish, but coming off a win. Inspector Lindley seems to be in good form. Mr. Cub with some early positional speed. Forge for Bill Mott. Conquest Panthera has numbers that fit. Zenner is interesting, comes out of the win in this race. That was the last race, so hasn't been seen in a year. And just an interesting scenario there. I pulled up, however, the Forbidden Apple from July 14th. We're going to watch the #4 Voodoo Song win, so you get to see that horse's last race as well. But #7 projected second. That was a very fast race, and to run second in there, I think, is a good setup, perhaps, for Saturday afternoon for projected. What do you think in the Lure?
Well, the extra week made a big difference. Projected was not in the Lure last week when it was canceled. He's in there today. Same for Forge. Both of those horses were entered when they redrew the race. You know, so I think projected is the one to beat, especially if he can get a little bit of help up front with the pace. He's got the rail. Zenner, like you said, defending champ, has 3 wins in a row, but those were all a year ago. You know, when he won this race last year, he was off a 2-month layoff. Now he's off a 1-year layoff. So, you know, you got to take that into consideration. He's also a year older now as well. A very competitive field. But gun to my head, I'm going to take projected. These aren't the kind of races I like to play, but you know, a lot of guys do. So
you don't like the turf stakes?
I'm not a big turf fan in general.
Oh, really?
I just think too much trip stuff goes on, and especially the bigger the fields, the more racing luck you need. So I'm not a big proponent as far as my own wagering goes, but you know, I just think projected now, the way things set up, he's got that extra week. Look, it's Chad Brown. He's had a terrific meet already, so I think the race goes through him.
You got to play to your strengths and your strength workouts, and so you can play to those races over on the dirt side where you've seen some good workouts. But the bonus there, folks can tap into your knowledge via the workout reports.
We do have TurfWorks, and there's going to be some insights into these races
Sure.
as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying my own personal preference is I'd rather play the dirt races. Just I think they're a little bit more formful, but you know, there are some opportunities. I'm not saying there's not here, and I'm not saying I've never been a two-turn turf race or
you
even
do
a
have to
5A
pick your
turf
spots,
race.
though.
You do
I have my preferences as well, and if you veer too far from those preferences, it'll come back and bite you a little bit. But as you say, TurfWorks also part of the workout report, and I've said it, and I can verify it. There's some good nuggets available there each and every day via the workout reports from the Daily Racing Forum. So check those out as well. DRF.com. You can catch Mike, the hard copy as well. Mike, always appreciate the visit.
My pleasure to be here.
Mike Welch from the Daily Racing Forum. We'll take a break, and Melissa Cohen will join us. She's an assistant trainer to Rick Violette. Of course, been a big week for them last weekend with the Grade 1 Whitney under their belt, and they have Biself in the stake this afternoon as well. We'll talk all that and much more right after this. Stay tuned.
Bet, and cheer on live racing from Woodbine and Mohawk Park. Thoroughbred and harness action. The wagers are just the beginning. Watch award-winning broadcasts covering both breeds, incredible battles contested over the most unique grass course in North America. Experience the full fields with over 130 thoroughbred and 160 live harness days. Get access to free handicapping material and join the ranks of Woodbine and Mohawk Park players from all over the globe. For more information, visit woodbine.com.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad. Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
The backstretch workers are the heart and soul of what we do.
They're the backbone of the industry.
People on the racetrack are very giving people.
It's a very impressive community of people helping one another. We see it all the time.
Any help we need it. It's right there in their hands.
It makes so much easier in the family to have somebody like Nathan to help them.
A day at the track isn't complete without a night at the Horseshoe. Great food, hot music, and cold drinks. So why go downtown when all the action's just across from the track? The Horseshoe Inn at the corner of Nelson and Gridley.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As promised before the break, joined now by Melissa Cohen. She's an assistant trainer with Rick Violette. Melissa, thanks for stopping by.
Very nice to be here. Thank you.
Happy to have you here. And as I say, you're the assistant trainer for Rick Violette. If somebody comes up and says, what do you do? How do you explain assistant trainer?
Do a little bit of everything. We just keep the barn flowing and make sure the horses are in good order, make sure the people are doing what they need to do, all the grooms and hot walkers, etc. And just, monitor the barn and there's a lot that goes into it.
I read the little piece Teresa, our friend Teresa Gennaro, did in the Saratogian about you on Whitney Day and beyond. Mentioned you came down from Canada. Give us a little bit of your background, how you got in the horse racing game.
Yeah, 8 years old, I started riding, and then my coach eventually she started dating a vet from the racetrack, and she ended up getting onto the racetrack. My sister and I we were riding, and yeah, we just started coming on weekends and summers, and it blossomed from there.
Which track was that?
That was Fort Erie.
Oh, okay.
Racetrack.
I've never been there, but the
simulcast
looks like a really nice racetrack, and they have that the Puss in Boots, where after the race they throw them in the pond in the middle. Yeah, I like that. So, how long have you been with Rick?
15 years.
Oh, very good.
Yep.
And give us, assistant trainer. I know it's different here than downstate, but give us your typical day at Saratoga.
It all starts around 4:40 in the morning, and check legs, make sure everything's all right there, and then make sure, I do the set list the day before, and then make sure everybody's ready to go in order, and then I get on the pony as well with a few horses, that need the extra help. And yeah, we just train all morning, and then sometimes we school every day. The horses school the day before they run, or more, a couple days before if they need it. And then the racing and the feeding and the payroll, and
yeah, people don't think about some of that stuff. So the day wraps up
at the blacksmith, and it's it all depends if we're running. I mean, some days we get done early, you could be done around noon, and then other days, tomorrow I'm in the last race, I'll be done around just before 8 o'clock probably.
What does schooling entail?
Taking them to the paddock and just introducing them to everything, and just making sure they can stand well in the stall and they're relaxed. Rick's always on about taking a deep breath in the paddock and just having that, it's just get the adrenaline out. And
is that new horses only, or horses with experience as well?
Actually, we don't school our first-time starters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just they don't know what to expect. It's the ones that know what's happening, the ones that it's usually second time out that they're going to be bad. If they're going to be bad first time, they're just all in shock. So it's, but yeah, some are very good, and we just go over there just to let them have a look around, and others need that extra attention and the extra time, or a few days of schooling ahead of time.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'll go over there, and when I arrive, I walk through the paddock, and a lot of times the horses will be on the track for whatever race it is, because I'll sit back here and work, so I may get there the third race, and the horses are already on the track, but you walk through and there'll be 3 or 4 horses maybe walking around. They're getting some education.
It's very busy here. Actually, schooling here is great, because there'll be 30 horses in the paddock at 11 o'clock, which is more than usual, obviously, but they're getting their fair share of action, and it makes such a big difference. If having a horse behave in the paddock beforehand, a lot of horses can just lose the race beforehand, so it's very important.
How much experience, when do you decide they've got it now and you won't bother with that? Or does that ever happen?
No. It's just protocol. Day before, they all go to the paddock, and unless it's raining or if it's the circumstances.
All right, let's go back to last Saturday. And speaking of kind of learning and experiencing, this was part of the article, and we had Rick in, and he mentioned it too. You guys did a yeoman's job, obviously, given what we saw on the racetrack, but that was a very unique situation that certainly had to have you concerned in that, as Rick said, and I witnessed it before I ran out of the rain, but I was standing in the paddock for a while under a tree, and it was raining a little bit, and so all the horses were walking in the saddling shed in the paddock area. But as Rick said, you also had people crowding in there trying to get out of the rain themselves.
Exactly.
So you're in close quarters for what wound up to be the better part of an hour.
It felt like a very long time. It was such tight quarters in there. When you have everybody in there on a regular day, it's not a problem. But when you have people and horses in there, it was a little stressful.
And how do you keep your horse calm? Is there anything you can do other than? And I believe some horses also. Okay, let's get him out of here for a little bit.
Yeah, so as long as he was much happier walking. Like, we just kept walking. That's when he started wanting to kick. As soon as we pulled him up, it was or had to stop for anybody. That's when he started getting upset. So as long as he was walking, he was happy.
Yeah, Rick said he has a tendency to maybe.
He can on race. Yeah, when he's pumped up. Normally on a regular day, he's cool as can be and laid back and great to work around. But yeah, he's got a game face. That's
so
for sure.
Were you maintaining your confidence? You were still feeling like, nah, he's okay.
Yeah, no, he was acting great. He was being good. He wasn't getting too upset or anything. So it was. Yeah, I was happy with.
Because it was a crazy, unique situation, obviously, and we're going to take a look at the stretch run here from the Whitney, because you guys had to be over the moon. I said to Rick, I was standing next to some people watching the race from the winner's circle, and about midway down the backstretch, he starts to open up a little, and by the time they hit the far turn, and I said, oh, the race is over, and here we are, he opens up. Now, mind your biscuits, starts to make a move, and given what he did in Dubai, you start to, you start to think. But then about the 8th pole, you realize, no, he's too classy.
He just keeps that momentum going. It's unbelievable how he can just maintain that speed and just keep. He's like a locomotive.
As I say, right about here, you and the team have to be over the moon.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I was pretty ecstatic.
Yeah, and then after a race like this, tell us a little bit about what happens after a race like this. Where does he go, and when does he get back to the stall, and when does he eat? What's the protocol?
Right after we go to the test barn and we get the urine and blood samples there and let him have his bath and drink, and then. We went back to the barn and gave him a good look over, make sure everything was still good, which it was, and then we gave him a nice 5 days off this time for that extra effort, and threw him out in the round pen for a couple hours every day and just let him chill out and be a horse and just enjoy himself.
So he came out of it well.
He did. He's pretty proud of himself. He knows he did well.
Do you get that sense?
Yeah, they do. They know.
Yeah, very good. And Rick said, unlikely Woodward, probably Jackie Club Gold Cup for him, which makes sense given that this was kind of an audible kind of a call, given the way he was working out.
Exactly,
you guys, I guess, in the morning were quite impressed.
We were very fortunate for him to bounce back the way he did, and I doubt we'll take our chances and see if he'll bounce right back like that. We gotta look after him, be fair.
I don't blame you. He is obviously a very special horse, and now has put two monster efforts together. It's going to be fun to watch him the rest of the year, certainly. I wanted to touch on another horse today in the New York Stallion Series. Talked with this a little bit with Rick, too. We had him on the weekend, and I said, by self, I looked, and, worked on the turf. And Rick said, we're probably going to go in the New York Stallion Series. On the turf, at a mile. Going to watch the stretch run of the last race where he's going to run second on a sloppy track. But Hayfield subsequently came back and won up here. So I think flatters this performance. Yeah. This was the third start. First two were nice wins. And, Rick said that turf work was nice and pretty confident. What's the feeling around the barn by self for this afternoon's race?
Yeah, actually, we're looking forward to seeing her on the grass. She galloped out great. The rider had a tough time pulling her up. She was very, very happy, and she's not the most beautiful mover on the dirt. I mean, she gets the job done, and she's very talented, but she just seemed to just move better and skip along a little nicer on the turf. So we're really looking forward to seeing what she can do this afternoon.
Question mark also, obviously, 6.5 furlongs, 6 furlongs, 7 furlongs, now a stretch out to a mile. How much of a question mark is that for you all, or do you get a sense of, this is a two-turn kind of horse?
Yeah, I think, she's very rateable, she's very versatile, and she'll do whatever you tell her to do, and I think she'll just...
What gives you that indication? Workouts in the morning, or the confirmation?
Just her whole mannerism in general. She's been very simple, very, very easy to work with, and she's just there to please, and she'll do whatever you want her to do. She's great to work around.
And so by self in the New York Stallion Series this afternoon, and then coming up tomorrow, always like to get some thoughts on first-time starters. Last race tomorrow, you alluded to that already. You're in the last race, so maybe a later night for Friday. But it's Friday.
Exactly.
Should be a late night, I guess. But Wisecrack tomorrow, the number 6 horse in the 10th race by the Factor. Paid $125,000 last year, right up here. So for a New York bred, pretty good price, and with the Factor on top, interesting as well. What are some of the thoughts around the barn on Wisecrack tomorrow in the debut effort?
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward. He's done everything right so far as well, and he had a great breeze on the grass as well last week. He was definitely more impressive on the grass than he has been in his dirt breezes, and I think we're going to throw some blinkers on him as well, just to let him focus. We've galloped him a few times, and he just seems to just even relax with them. I'm very looking forward to seeing him run. He's shown plenty of talent.
That's interesting, too. You brought up another question, blinkers on, and we made that decision. How do you make that decision? Any equipment change, really, but blinkers is one of the more prominent ones. Is that something you guys see in the workouts? Is that something you learn around the barn? Hey, this horse just needs to be a little more focused. Or maybe it's a combination.
Yeah,
does a rider give you a hint?
Sometimes, if they're looking around a lot, or if they just aren't paying attention, or just not quite focused 100% like you like them to be. It's a guessing game. It always is, just to see. But usually, you can tell really in a workout is the best way to tell if they're get them more on the bridle. But we've just galloped this guy in them. But he's even his gallops have been Because usually he's looking around
Yeah.
and playful. He's a playful little guy, so with the blinkers on, he just was a lot more straightforward.
Kind of have to like that though when they're interested. I talk to the folks who go to the sales, and they always say, "I like the ones that are looking out, trying to figure out what's going on." They're engaged.
Definitely.
And is that something with first-time starters that you're looking for, the mental aspect as well as the physical aspect?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Rick is very meticulous about them behaving and learning every day. From the time they leave the barn to the time they come back to the barn, they have to be walking out perfect. They can't be jumping around, and it's we're here to teach them.
Yeah, elementary school.
Yeah, exactly. They are. They're babies. They're 2-year-olds. So there's always something to learn for those guys.
All right, Melissa, we certainly appreciate the visit. We congratulate you and the whole team on the win last week, which, again, the Whitney, one of the most prestigious and historic grade ones in the country, obviously. We had Jeff Canizzo on earlier, and to do it with the New York Preds adds to it's just an incredible week for the New York Preds, but for the barn as well. We wish you good luck this afternoon with Buy Self, tomorrow with Wisecrack, and we appreciate the visit.
Thank you very much.
Melissa Cohen, assistant to Rick Violet. All right, that wraps things up for this edition of Racing Across America, Thursday here at Saratoga. Looks like it's going to be a good afternoon. Still a little bit humid, but boy, sunny. And as I say, the forecast I heard, no rain for this afternoon. We'll keep our fingers crossed and knock wood, but it looks like it's going to be a great day up here. Come on up, enjoy the races. If you can't make it up here, swing by one of the parlors or the race book down on Central Avenue in Albany. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock with the Handicappers Report, 10 o'clock with Racing Across America. Cash some tickets this afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
You've been watching Racing Across America with Seth Merrow. Racing Across America has been brought to you by CapitalOTBBet.com, the premier online wagering site in New York State. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today. Pinnell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, Saratoga, just minutes from the track. Thoroughfan, giving the fan a voice. Find them at thoroughfan.com. Woodbine Racetrack. Pick, bet, and cheer on world-class horse racing north of the border. And the new Capital OTB mobile app. Wager anytime, anywhere. Download it free from the iTunes Store or Google Play.